I am Helen Karnstein, daughter of Adele, who was burnt at the stake.
In 1964, Barbara Steele starred in The Long Hair of Death. This is a year before the film we covered in the previous installment, Terror Creatures from the Grave. And what a world of difference that year must have made, because Long Hair of Death is an intricate, smartly written, and gorgeously shot film. It doesn't have this feel of the cheapness that would be on display just a year later. That's not to say there isn't thrills to be found in Terror Creatures. I like that film quite a lot for what it is, but Long Hair of Death is a legitimate classic of the Gothic Italian melodrama. The plot is complex, and it's an ensemble piece with a lot of actors putting in good work. Now, the dubbing for the American audience has hurt the reputation of the acting in this film, but don't let that sway you. Just turn down the volume, put on the subtitles, and enjoy. This film was directed by Antonio Margheriti, who has a long list of credits in and outside the genre. The plot is a complex one. It begins with the burning at the stake of a woman accused of witchcraft. Now that's very familiar territory for these types of movies in this time period. This one is staged especially well, and it's telling that some of it is off-screen, as instead we watch the accused woman's daughter attempt to get her reprieve by succumbing to the advances of the local count. Unfortunately, the woman does die at the stake, but not before cursing the town. And that's, again, fairly standard material. Where the movie starts to pick up steam and go in a completely different direction and become less predictable is what happens next. The daughter is murdered as well. This is a film with a body count, a significant body count that would put most slasher films to shame. From there, there's a story of possible reincarnation, of a lot of intrigue, and of definite madness. Along the way, we're treated to one of Barbara Steele's most cagey and unpredictable performances. Even though we have a graphic, on-screen scene of a corpse returning to life, you'll find yourself wondering, is this really a reincarnated witch? Is this a ghost of some sort? And ultimately, you'll ask yourself, is Barbara Steele driving the plot or responding to it? Is she a victim or the aggressor? Even knowing the film as well as I do, on every watch, I find myself asking questions. And that's the mark of a truly great performance. I should mention this is a longer movie than most of the Gothics of the period. And that doesn't hurt this particular film because it is so quickly paced and so densely packed with plot. There's always some intrigue going on that's worth watching. And while it can be overly dramatic and the score to the film is at times horribly misplaced and really overwrought, the whole picture comes together because of its stunning photography, great performances, and willingness to go further than most films of the period. There's nudity, violence, and even potentially some heresy on screen. This is a very different sort of Gothic melodrama, and it's one of the most successful of the field. Later directors like Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento would borrow liberally from this movie. It's hard to watch Argento's Inferno and not see obvious parallels. Modern directors like Guillermo del Toro also clearly owe a debt to this film. And yet, this is one of those titles that I didn't grow up with. It wasn't a UHF Saturday afternoon staple. And it's really curious as to why. It couldn't have been expensive to license, but for whatever reason, it simply wasn't often licensed to television. Most of us discovered it on video. And even then, we discovered it on video as a double feature in a lot of cases. A trend that continues to this day. The DVD that I own is a double feature. Why is this great, great movie relegated to obscurity, even among horror fans? Well, maybe it's the title, which is admittedly kind of dopey. And it honestly sounds like it's an Asian ghost story from the 60s that's been translated badly. That's not what this is. But if you're like many, you never really had the opportunity to experience this film. And that's a shame. Barbara Steele gives one of her greatest performances in this. She is, of course, lovely, but that is not the hallmark of what she is as an actress. Anytime she's on screen, she's the center of your attention. And that's because she is simply a presence. She exudes a kind of movie star magnetism in these sorts of films that we simply don't see anymore. Yes, there's great actors who are associated with the horror genre that are currently working. And yes, we've had periods like the 70s and 80s where there was figures that rose to prominence in the field. But I can't help but watch her with a different viewpoint. There's a strength to her performances that's unusual enough for actresses of the period, but is uncommon even today. It's remarkable to watch her perform, especially in a film that's deserving of her talent, something that was not always afforded her. The Long Hair of Death is worth your attention. It's not hard to find anymore. You can look on many streaming services and find it for free. You can find a very discounted DVD that you can order through Amazon or your favorite online retailer. But it's a film that you're only going to find if you look for it. Don't let these flyover years of horror escape your attention. There's some great stuff that happened between the late 50s, throughout the 60s, and the early 70s. And if we focus too much on the 30s and 40s, the 70s and 80s, those periods that we've acknowledged are so strong in the field, we're going to miss out on some great, great movies. And, more importantly, for this series, you'll miss out on one of the best performers this genre has ever had.